We'd like to welcome Niek Dekker, VP of Marketing at Eftsure, to Marketing Chemistry. Welcome, mate. It's been a while.
Thank you. It's definitely been. It's been a while for sure. So
Yeah,
a
I
lot
think
has changed. So excited to catch up again.
well, that's why it's a good time that we're on a podcast together. I think we met, I'm trying to remember exactly when it was, but gut feeling would be 18-ish.
7 years, yeah, about right.
Yeah, I think so. So I think you were at a signer then with Sean, and you were obviously, growing the marketing side of things. I think it was still very much a startup back in those days, but yeah, it has been a very long time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It'd just be great to, just for our listeners, like to understand a little bit more about your backstory, Nick. So like tell us sort of, obviously you're at Eftsure now, but maybe just tell us before Eftsure and just kind of your career as a marketer. That'd be really interesting to see your sort of career path from the start.
Yeah, it's cool. So yeah, like B2B marketing, like how do you become a B2B marketer, right? It's like I don't think anyone has those dreams. So as my accent might give away already, I'm Dutch. I moved here about 11 years ago, right
Yeah.
after university. Really didn't have any money to my name. My Australia career started in cafes, and then a pivotal role in the
As
development of
yeah.
how you become
Well,
a
it's
B2B
all training,
marketer.
isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. So, and then like, yeah, through some luck, I got a job at a company called Resty. They did booking software for tours and activities. Really love that. Always been like interested in tech and software solutions. So B2B SaaS was like a really cool experience. And then like was like a small team, small marketing team. We got some growth, but it was hard, like difficult products, small market. So moved over to Sina where I met Sean and how we know each other. Construction,
Yeah.
um, very
Was that
interesting
like
again.
what year was that when you joined as signer?
Probably 8 years ago now. So what is that? 2017?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I was pretty
yeah,
close.
yeah,
There you
more
go.
or less. Yeah, yeah. So really set up like marketing there from all the learnings that I had from Resdy, which was in tourism to construction. Set up all the learnings there and like started growing with that company as well. I think that was an exciting moment of time. It was like 10 visitors on the website when I started, and I think when I left that there was 700 customers. So yeah, it was a really cool growth experience. Um, and then did the same at Eftsure again. To be honest, it was like I think we had 14 visitors on the website, so we were 40% ahead of where our signer was when I joined.
Yeah.
Yeah, had to start from a lot. Had a really good manager as well, I should say. And yeah, growth here at Eftsure has been incredible.
Mm.
I think we're now with 450 people across 3 offices globally. When I joined, I think there were 11 of us in total. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
been
wow.
it's been a hectic ride in the past
Yeah.
5 years. Yes, that's
Yeah,
how you
because
become.
I guess following you obviously since the sign-on days, but yeah, when you joined Efshore, like I've definitely noticed in the last few years, particularly because we do obviously B2B marketing ourselves, like just to see what you guys are doing in the B2B space at Efshore, and particularly when it comes to LinkedIn ads, LinkedIn marketing, demand gen, like you guys have just been doing such an awesome job. I think I even saw, was it a LinkedIn themselves did a case study with you guys. I
Yeah,
think I saw something with HubSpot as well. I know you've probably, yeah, I'm not sure if you're still using HubSpot now, but yeah, you guys were sort of crushing it.
yeah, no, definitely. Like we've been like the luxury that I've had every time run like setting marketing up from the start is like you don't have any legacy, right? So it's like made
Yep.
all these learnings and then the next time you can do it better again. So I had that 3 times. So when we started at Fsure, which was like really pivotal, and I think it's like B2B marketing as well, is like we were super close to our sales team. So
Yeah.
we started
Yeah.
to get revenue. Like our head of sales was like my way of my attribution model. So he said where the
Yep.
lead came from, and I didn't argue with that. That's what I know
Yep.
about. So we were doing a lot of manual work, and every Friday he would write an email, 5 deals closed. This one came from this, and he would put a lot of work in that, like a big paragraph, basically helping me to understand, like, in the rest of the business, like, this is where we win. And like, obviously at some point we were doing so many customers that that became his full-time job. And I was kind of stuck with, what are we doing now? And at that time, our head of demand gen joined, and he was like, you can automate this, right? And it's like, I was like that. So we bought this BI tool, Dream Data.
Okay.
Yeah, highly recommended. And they think about attribution completely differently than your first touch, last touch attribution, more
Yeah.
like data driven, and it's based on correlation. So that has helped us a lot to gain confidence in more brand branded advertising. And like, that has gave us all the confidence to see, like, hey, LinkedIn is a really good channel for us. Let's double down on that. And also in ways that we couldn't get out of HubSpot to measure. Like, that, like, in LinkedIn, there's
Yeah.
you see the impressions and you see the engagement, and then you want to close, like, and then your management team wants to see, how does that resonate into revenue. And we were never able to do that unless the head of sales was like writing it, like, oh, they've seen you on LinkedIn everywhere. So this tool has helped us like bridge that gap. So we now much more precise know to what extent those ads are working for us. And it's allowed us to be way more creative than what we usually would see would work, and be able to, not only for us to like come up with those ideas and then tell my management team, like, hey, like, this works, like, trust me, which most
Yeah. Well,
most of the time you have to do with brand campaign. No, we've been able to like put some dollar values behind that as well, and it's just allowed us to scale much faster in those channels.
so with because I know at Asana you guys were on HubSpot initially, and then I think maybe Salesforce towards the end. Was
Yeah.
that like was that a combination? Did you sort of, I can't remember exactly. Did you keep HubSpot for your marketing and sales, or
No, I wasn't there when we moved to Salesforce.
okay,
I've already left that. I know they made that move like shortly after. I'm not a fan of doing that. I think, like, the way of, we still run on HubSpot now.
cool. I was
We're
going to ask you
actually
if you guys are still. I remember you were
Yeah,
using it a couple of years ago, but I wasn't sure of the latest. So
yeah. We're actually, like, we had our customer teams on a dedicated customer support platform
yeah.
as well, but we're moving them back. We're consolidating everything in HubSpot. I'm sure they love to
Oh,
hear that.
this is music to my ears.
Yeah.
This is great. I'm sure
Um,
HubSpot, yeah, would love to hear
yeah.
that for sure.
We're exploring a tool. It's from these guys. I've been following them from a while. It's called Arrow, and they're a bit of like a customer success layer product, like, on HubSpot. So they build it as a plugin to that,
Okay,
and the customer facing team is really excited about its potential. So we'll have to see what happens.
okay.
And we have to get it before they see this. We have to also to get a really big discount if we make it.
Yeah, 100%. You guys will be the first, case study.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I guess what you just talked about, that is a huge topic, attribution, because I know as an agency, but I'm sure a lot of, marketers that are listening to this podcast, it is, it is the number one thing, right? Where whether it's your client, if you're an agency, or it's your manager or the executive leadership team, you know, or your sales team, whoever it is, like, the question is what's working and what's not working.
Yeah.
And as much as we love HubSpot, of course, you are limited with attribution in HubSpot, whether it's first touch, original source, or last touch, or you go with multi-touch attribution as well.
Hmm.
But even that is kind of dependent on the CRM kind of capturing a moment in time. So I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Nick, because we've been sort of suggesting to our clients to go a little bit old school in terms of a how did you hear about us, like, multi-text paragraph box as well. So and actually comparing that to HubSpot's attribution to see, are there any correlation, or is it completely different to what
Yeah.
HubSpot's reporting? Yeah.
Yeah. I think before diving into like the technical part of how to track it, right? It's like, attribution is a means to an end. And the end is showing where your growth comes from. you want to do that with at such a level of confidence that like your CEO, who has in a software business like a head of product, head of engineering, customer operations, all asking for money. So if you then
Yep.
come with like a flat like statement and is like, hey, I think we should invest more in this brand campaign. It's like, well, do we? I'd rather build more products because I think that moves the business forward. So you need to come up with a way of how you can quantify and make that decision a no-brainer for your CFO or your CEO, where you'd be like, hey, if we invest here, here is where the growth is. And I think
Yeah.
that's like marketing leader, that's where your responsibility should be. Like find a way of how you create momentum for your business and then be able to explain it to the rest of the business. Well, then again, how you track it is like that also really depends on what valuable is for your business. So we are now in in Australia, for instance, we use like this data-driven attribution that tracks every
Hmm.
point and creates a value based on how often an engagement happens in a certain path. It's quite interesting. It's like if you want to geek out on it, it's called the Markov chain. Have a read about it. It's
Okay,
cool.
cool. Other
It's cool.
very similar to
Oh,
a band from the
y- y-
90s.
yeah, exactly. It's a bit of
Yep.
like statistics, prediction modeling, and stuff like that. So that's
Yep.
what we're using. Um, and that works really well. However, in the US, we apply like first touch attribution. We're so
Yep.
small, we need to introduce people to our brand. That's the most important thing, and and as quickly and as many as possible. So first touch for that use market is much better than continuous engagement. So it
Yep.
depends on like which attribution model you pick should reflect with the goal of the business that your business has. So yeah, and then as you said, like HubSpot limits you a bit in your choices, and especially you're like in a bit more saturated market already. It's harder, but it could work as well. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've always found that a challenge, and that's where, like, especially not just in terms of the lead or the MQL attribution, but also trying to focus a little bit more on the pipeline attribution or
yeah,
opportunity, obviously, and then obviously going down to close one customers at the end of the day as well. But you know, we often find that, you know, attribution is just part of the puzzle. So trying
yeah,
to identify how did they hear about us in terms of like, yeah, is it a podcast? Is it LinkedIn? You know,
yeah,
because HubSpot, as you know, will tell you some of the story. And even with multi-touch attribution, I mean, that's good for revenue attribution, I think, because you can kind of report, and we're still tinkering with this, but reporting on which marketing campaigns and assets was the company or contact engaging with, and then you
yeah.
can apply different attribution models to that. But yeah, love to know, like, is that something you guys are still sort of playing around with, or is it this other software that you mentioned? What was it called? Revenue
Dream data.
Dream Data. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I don't have any commercial deal with them yet, but we've said
We'll
in a
just
lot
put
of
the link in
places. So
the show notes. Yeah.
yeah, me and my head of demand, and we're very popular in their office.
Yeah.
But no, like it's exactly what you say, right? It's like you have these campaigns, and you know that some of them work like later stage. Like as a marketer, you're in there, you just know, especially like impressions on LinkedIn. So that's always been incredibly hard to measure. So we're now seeing that those platforms are starting to talk better to each other, which is interesting. And like, yeah, we've already uncovered like like insane correlation effects where it's like if we show ads that challenge the buyer while they are on their way from work in the train, and there's like some witty one liner of like you don't want to be the next headline in the newspaper with in relation to fraud,
Yeah.
you can now see that the groups that have seen that ad close at a much faster rate than the other groups. So there's a lot of data in there. I think like love diving into that, but there is like a limit to what we can and what makes sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, having that in just a wealth of knowledge that you get from that.
Yeah. No, it's good to see what you guys are doing and what's been working. So I guess taking a step back, attribution is just like a we could talk about that for hours. It's
Yes.
kind of like the marketing Achilles heel for every marketer in the world, isn't it? But
Yeah.
we're trying. So in terms of F-Shore yourself, like when you started there, obviously you had some really good learnings from Asana, but a completely different industry and business. So what were some things that you guys tested at F-Shore over the last few years and that you feel like yeah has worked, or like any tips and tricks you can kind of share that would
Yeah.
be great.
Yeah. So what I learned, which is really good, like I think from every industry that I've been in, I've taken something and that made me a better marketer. And I think in what I learned from construction as an industry as a whole, people don't believe you at face value.
Yeah,
So trust is so important in that industry. You need to go out there, they need to see you, uh, you need to justify your cost. So it was actually really good learning to now go to a product that is trust. Like that's what we sell. We sell trust. Make
yeah,
sure that your payments go to the right person. So those similarities were really good. And then what we found in the early days specifically was like we're no one. Like nobody cares about us. We're this small brand. No, who will ever trust us? Like, and then you say the word payments, and the trust just plummets
yeah.
even further,
And
right? Like,
cybersecurity is a, would you agree it's a pretty saturated market? There's a lot of providers in that
it,
kind of, I guess, that IT cybersecurity space, or it
yeah,
just seems like it from our perspective.
yeah. It's a growing market. I think
Yeah.
people are like, it's all about like what's your risk appetite as a business to what you buy. I think that's important. But what we found is, and I think this is like goes between every B2B business, right? There's like these five things that we all want. We want to save time. We want to cut costs. We want this business to do something we're not capable or willing to do. And then the other one is like we want to comply with something. Like those most, if you go to any B2B
Yep.
website, those are the four underlying things. Oh, and then we play nicely with all the integration.
Sure. All the tech
So
stack and yep.
so most websites go there. So what we kind of try to do is really go beyond that and tell the story as like what does this allow you? What does this mean for you in this role? So yeah, we really learn to set ourselves apart by storytelling and trying to resonate on a more emotional level. I think most people in a job that the key decision making driver is like, I don't want to mess this up. I may lose my
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that. We had some HubSpot sales training recently that they provided to HubSpot partners, and it was all about the real decision why a lot of decisions get made is, am I going to lose my job?
Yeah,
And is this a safe bet or not? So sorry, keep going. But
exactly.
it was an
Yeah,
interesting little takeaway that I'm like, wow, okay. Especially for like
I,
enterprise level companies as well. Yeah,
yes, that's why there is like the big four accountancy,
exactly.
consultancy firms, right? Because they said it, they put their stamp of approval on the
Yeah,
strategy, must be good. So, so we had that as well. So we all like knew that was happening. So in the early days, no one, no, like we had a message that resonated, but we needed like a brand to back us up with that. So we had a few partnerships with one of those big four, and their endorsement just like we executed really well on that. And like I think probably 2 months in that I was there, it's like we have a good story. Let's use it. And then we did a webinar and we had like 1,200 senior leaders on that call.
wow.
And I
Yeah,
think now 700 or 600 of those are our customers. So it's like you need that trust. You need to get that in the market. The moment you get more customers, you need to be a bit more careful with the partners that you play with because you're actually the bigger brand now. But yes, so over time you'll just like grow into that. But at the beginning, you need to borrow audiences from other players and then make sure that you are like that credible
yeah,
solution. And then especially payments, trust, cybersecurity, like you need to, yeah, you need somebody that can vouch for you.
yeah. And one thing that's really stood out to me with your marketing at Fshore has just been just the actual creative element. Like it's it is the kind of scroll stopping ads that you don't often see in LinkedIn. So where you've got like the guy in the cloak and the, the headlines and the creative that, that you've been using has really stood out a lot. So was that part of the brand building, brand awareness side of things from the
So
early days?
yeah, so we've always had it. I think like for us, it really clicked when we made a Miley Cyrus reference to Wrecking Ball. It was like we
Oh
just
yeah.
had a
Yeah.
simple accounts payable checklist done, and the ad said like check yourself before you wreck yourself, and then Miley Cyrus flying around on a wrecking ball. Um,
Nice.
that did really well. What we and this wasn't like a deliberate strategy at first. Like we kind of went a bit out of hand with that, and that must have been a bit crazy. But what we found was like for a topic, everything is so dry and serious and it's not approachable. So we needed to have a way to resonate with people on a bit more emotional level, witty, smart. We still like to challenge people. So one of our best ad lines that we've ever had is like the F in CFO shouldn't stand for fraud, a chief
Yes.
fraud officer.
Yeah.
It's challenging, it's direct, and if you back that up with like knowledge, and then you respect the buyers as well, you can get away with it. If it's just like fun and trying to do that, it doesn't work, it falls flat. But
Yeah.
if it's a way of like, hey, this looks interesting, and then you'd be like, oh, there's more to it than just fun and games, there's a bit of seriousness to this story as well. um
Mm.
that balance is working really well for us.
Yeah. So yeah, so it seems like it was you sort of had that one big client or case study, and that really propelled you because you had the social proof, you had a big logo,
Yeah.
and then so how did you approach your demand gen, I guess, like so I guess comparing it from, your first year there at Fshore to now, what sort of changed over the journey in terms of how you've been doing your marketing?
um Not much, like not much, but
Yep.
we've been there's this one book that I've read, like it's 80 pages. I think I read it like one day when I just started my job. It's called The Bullseye Framework of Traction. It's literally the letters are this big. There's 80 pages, 15 minutes if you're
Okay.
quick. Um,
Good read.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it's it's a very valuable read. Basically, book outlines 21 channels that you can grow with, and it all goes about like channel saturations, right? Like 80% of your growth is going to come from one channel.
Yeah.
So we knew that like nobody's looking for a solution like ours, so we needed to create demand. We need a bit of time to
Yeah.
explain what we do. So LinkedIn is like not a lot of time. A video or webinar is like half an hour, or like how long
Yeah.
the video is. So so we needed to rely on those things instead of like Google Ads, and it didn't work. And then we just built that out. So we hit success with a webinar where we got to tell the story. It's like, well, if we do a webinar, why not a recorded video, right? All of a sudden, we were way more confident to put that content in a video and
Yeah.
put that on YouTube advertising, put that in LinkedIn advertising. And then the video worked. And then it was like, well, what if we make it images and like just a bit more reach and whatnot. So we always like build that out that way. And then on the other side, we were like, well, webinars are working. We had a great public speaker at the time as well. So which you need to do it well. So we were like, well, if it works online, why wouldn't it work in person? So now like it started working at conferences. Then we did like if it works at conferences, why doesn't this work in a lunch and learn setting as well? So we have a
Yeah.
partnership team that does that everywhere, and we have the luxury to have a like a story people want to listen to for half an hour to an hour. Like
Mm.
we go in depth about like cybercrime syndicates and how they operate on the dark web. So it's engaging, it's entertaining content. We don't do any selling at those events, and like so that's our mix. We need some time with the buyer to tell the story, um, and then they can make an educated decision themselves.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting to see how you guys are approaching it. And yeah, I think it's sort of it shows you that you do need to have the product market fit, once you've nailed that, which you guys obviously did with that
Yeah,
first big client. it's kind of like, then how can we get the story out there? And then
Yeah.
you just kind of, how can we, accelerate it? And did you guys like, was it more of a, obviously you mentioned LinkedIn and doing events, etc. Was it, did you guys also layer in a bit of account-based marketing or any outbound as well? Or was it more kind of just LinkedIn, like targeting ICPs and going from there, like to get you
No.
off?
Yeah, no. So we have a big outbound function as well. So they work like simultaneously to what we do in marketing. But in our marketing, we try not to sell. We try to give knowledge, just value, and kind of believe that senior decision makers that we target, like they're used to making decisions. All you need to do is give them information,
Yep.
and you don't have to tell them that they need to make a decision. They'll make the decision if the information is good. So we try to focus our efforts on that. But yeah, we have this outbound one as well, because I don't think you can wait for your revenue to come for you. It's a very passive, like marketing in
Yep.
the end is very passive way of growing your business. I always think like we should, actually in B2B, you can create an environment where people want to buy, but you still have to like reach out to them and like, okay, now I want to
Yeah.
buy. So like that alignment is really important for us.
Yeah, and you're primarily targeting, like, would CFOs be your primary kind of ICP or like
Yeah,
job title? Yeah. So
yeah,
you think about any CXO, they're incredibly busy,
yeah,
very hard to get their attention, isn't it? So, I would imagine even from a ads perspective or even from a outbound perspective, it's very hard to get in front of them. So having that multi-channel, omni-channel approach, it
yeah,
sounds like it. I'm glad to hear that you guys are doing that, because that's something that we've been also trying to, and we're doing it ourselves. So that kind of like that all bound, inbound and outbound approach, where the inbound, as you said, is more for the education, but a lot of these senior decision makers that we're targeting, our ICPs, they may not be actually looking for our solution yet, especially for what you guys are doing.
yeah.
So, you do need to have that outbound approach as well, where you're kind of like trying to get a conversation with the right person. And then hopefully they're seeing you on LinkedIn, and then, it goes from
I,
there.
yeah, I think like definitely in tech, like you have this, it's called the SDR function. Like in
Yep.
tech, everyone would know.
Yep.
I think you need those, and like we treat it as a sales function. It's a way to grow into an account executive or some business development manager. But the way of how I approach it in our entire strategy, it's just a very intense, personalized marketing channel. It's
Yep.
it's like those are the closes. It's like, hey, we've now created this environment. Like they call, and it's like whenever you get a cold caller, and it's like, hey, it's Ben from animation videos. Usually the guys that call me, I don't care. I don't know who you are. Uh, it's all this bad. If I get a phone call from a business that has told me an interesting story, and I'm like, yeah, I know about you. That was interesting what you
Yeah.
provided me. Your product sound like the two things that guy on stage told me about. That sounded interesting. I think I'm missing a trick.
Hmm.
I'll sit with you in a call. Then that call is not like that annoying cold call.
It's more of a warm, yeah. And would that be like, so you guys are doing, obviously your SDRs are no doubt contacting the inbound leads, but
Yeah,
also a bit of outbound, no doubt
yeah,
as well. So,
yeah, a lot.
but because
Yeah,
because you've got that brand awareness in the market, as you say, maybe early
yeah,
days it was a lot harder for them
yeah.
to get a call, but now because you guys are a known trusted brand, it just shows you, doesn't it, the importance of it is an all bound strategy.
Well, and also like not overestimating what marketing is capable of. So what when we went through a period where we're like, oh, this conferences, webinars works. There's 500 people on this call. We should show them our software. Like we should show them a product. And what we quickly found out was like, hey, that's the wrong approach, because people have questions about your product. And if they don't have the opportunity to ask them, they make the answers up themselves. And then we
Yeah.
call them and it's like, hey, are you interested? And they're like, no, I know what you guys do. Talk to you later. So
Yeah.
you need to be very specific as to like where is somebody in the journey and what
Yeah.
information do you need to provide them as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, and that's where, like, having that something that we've been trying to test a little bit as well is having the BDR function, so more the outbound. I know it's a little bit confusing, SDR, BDR.
Yeah.
SDR typically inbound, BDR is typically outbound, but sometimes SDR does both. But sort of just viewing them as a bit of part of a demand gen engine. So, they're doing outbound, they're trying to book meetings. It is a bit more of a pure sales role, but at the end of the day, it is, as you said, that's like highly personalized marketing as well,
Yeah. They won't
trying
appreciate.
to get in
We have
front of
like
them. Yeah.
we have like I think it's 42 of them. They won't like it that I'm telling you
Right.
that it's a marketing channel. They're really like it's a really energetic team. And that's what you need as well. Culture in that team is super important.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a tough gig, but like even the likes of HubSpot, who have the biggest inbound function known to man, you know, they've got a massive outbound team, you know.
Yeah.
So it shows you that, you do need both. And that sometimes a lot of businesses think, and even from an agency perspective, oftentimes clients think that it's all marketing and you don't need sales, but it's like you don't need outbound sales or a
Mm.
sales team, but it's actually, you've hit the nail on the head. Marketing is part of it, of course, and for that education piece, but you need someone hitting the phones as well and following up those leads. So
Yeah. I think you can always bank on that your target audience is lazy.
yeah,
Nobody wants to engage. You need to ask them, like, come engage with me.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And as you said, everyone's at different parts of the customer journey or the funnel, right? So some may have downloaded a guide or something like that, but may not be quite ready or yeah. And also with B2B, like there is usually a long sales cycle for that as well. So you got to
Yeah,
keep your brand front and center.
100%.
So you mentioned just before we jumped on, you mentioned that like when you started at Eftsure. So were you like the first marketing hire there pretty much? Or
Yeah. Uh, no, we've tried again, and then my boss had like a dual role. He was like
okay.
running. He was like hired as CMO, but was also running sales. And then when I joined, he's just started focusing on sales more so. So yeah, we're trying. Yeah,
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that journey is quite fascinating. So you've been there now for what, 5 years?
yeah, a little over 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the journey and like how did you decide? So let's say there was two of you. So now how many are there on the team now?
We're now with 20, so
Wow.
globally, yeah, and so a lot has
Wow.
changed in 5 years.
And yeah, look, I think it'd be fascinating to talk through like what was the yeah, how did you approach when to hire, who to hire, what was the kind of the job description, I guess, and yeah, like
Yeah,
how you scale the marketing team? I think that's amazing.
yeah. So it has changed over time, and I think hiring is the hardest thing. Like you hear it on every podcast, and I think
Yeah,
it's true. I think now, like I have an amazing team now, and so like, but we now got it right. We got our hiring right. We know what profile to look for. But in the beginning, like I knew my strengths. Like if you look yourself in the mirror, you know what you're good at and you know what you're not good at and you know what the business needs. So I'm a terrible writer. I'm a terrible like con- content creator and all of
yeah,
that. So my first hire was that. And
sure.
was
Okay. Yeah,
was that what the business needed at the point? Well, maybe other things first, but that was who I was and together we made a good team. So that ran for a while. And then I hired, like we started these events that started getting traction, so we hired for that. And then so as you are growing and you building out like your channels, you look for people that can help you further with that. And I think the hardest part for me was I always saw myself as like a demand gen person,
yeah,
like growth marketing, and then admitting to myself that that is now the role that I need to hire. Like I can no longer fully focus on that. that was hard to do that.
Yeah.
I got that. That was also one of the hardest roles to get right because yeah, there's a bit of ego involved. There's a bit of like, well, like I'm really good at this. The person that I'm gonna hire is probably not that good as I am. So like
Yeah.
I got the first hire wrong, and then like and so forth.
Can
So
can I let go of the reins to this person, or am I going to like watch over their shoulder for everything they're doing?
yeah, so that was like
Mm.
a big reflection moment for me as well, and now it's like somebody in my team that is like I wouldn't be able to like we wouldn't be where we are today. But that was like to admit that and stuff like that. Like that was hard for me, and I think for other people that might be different. And then and then as you grow as well, it's like you hire this, and then all of a sudden there's like a next round of growth, and you're like, okay, like I can't manage everyone directly anymore. Like now we need to build a layer of managers,
Yeah.
and then so then it's all about trust people, and then management style might be different than yours, and then you see things going wrong, and then you want to step in, you shouldn't, and because you're the first hire as well, you know how the systems work. So you get all the questions like, where is this? What is the link here? And so definitely didn't do that. Like it took long to have that right. I think now, and this is only like recent, the past 6 months, we really got our team in a really good shape. We are no longer hiring based on resume or skill, but more on like, do these people give me energy? I think that's very
Yeah.
important in marketing. People that come up with ideas, that are like not afraid to speak up. I think those qualities are way more important than the
Yeah.
resume and the role that they've worked for.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And the reality is with marketing is that it's changing every day, isn't it? So even if you do have some skills, that's great. But we're as marketers, we're all just learning on the fly. Like, and now with AI coming in and how we integrate that into our workflow, like you can't study this stuff at uni. So
No,
yeah, I think the attitude, the energy you bring, I mean, having that curious mind, being able to figure stuff out on your own, I think that's yeah, it's just so important.
I also think, right, like especially in a B2B corporate setting, stuff can get very seriously very quickly. And I think like we had this in when COVID hit. Like my
Yeah.
wife was a project manager in construction, and I was arguing about the color blue, like, oh, it's not the right color and all of this.
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
actually had an
First world
accident.
problems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she had an accident on site, and like somebody fell off a roof or something like that, and that was her pain. And I'm like, okay, we should take this with some seriousness, but in
Yeah.
perspective, like we're not saving lives. Also, let's have a bit of fun
Yeah.
and try stuff, and yeah, go about it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And how fascinated to know with your marketing team, like, was there a good structure for the team that has worked, or like, do you have pods? Is it by discipline, or yeah, that would be interesting to
Yeah.
understand.
So I got lucky that I was able to free up budget for quite senior marketing managers, right? So
Yeah.
it's like as you scale, you get like you hire like most organizations I see, they hire a junior,
Yeah.
another junior, and then the head of marketing is mainly educating the team every day. So I was quite lucky not to go into that. So
Yeah.
I had like senior people from the get-go. And then now I think that takes time as well for everybody to grow then in management roles and to go. But now we are like organized in 4 different skills. So we have communication and content.
Yeah.
And we have that's one team. We have our demand gen team, but marketing team, and then a design team, creative. So they're not just like brand designers. They come up with all the witty lines as well. So we have our in-house creative department.
Yeah.
So so that is now taking shape, and we're now rethinking that again because we are now in the US and we're also in Europe. So managing time zones is a
Yeah.
mess again as well, right? So now have a head of marketing in France, and she's running the team over there as well.
Yeah.
So it's like how do we now build the structure out without having 20-hour workdays kind of among the team.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a whole new challenge that we are trying to figure out now.
Yeah. And with Fshore, like, how like did it start off kind of bootstrapped? Was it capital raise? What was the in terms of the growth? How has that been funded?
Yeah, so we had VC funding. They're called OIF Ventures. They were same investors as at Assigner.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I think they sold their shares, most of them, or I think all of them, 4 years ago. And since then, we've private equity funded a company called Level Equity in New York. Yeah,
Yeah. Cool.
that comes with a whole different set of pressures.
Yeah. Yes. I'm sure it does. Yeah. Yeah.
They're really good about it. Like
Yeah.
I shouldn't oversell. Like they're really good and like very supportive. But yeah, like growth is what it's about here.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, you guys are crushing it, so I'm sure they're extremely happy with the investment. So it'd be great to like, I mean, you've been a marketer now for like a long time and different roles, startups, now F-Shore 20-person team. It'd be great to understand like what are some tips or some recommendations that you would make, like to say like a younger marketer who's just starting out, maybe they're, a couple of years into a role, maybe they're at an agency, maybe they're at on client side. Um, what are some tips or advice that you'd give to your younger self?
Yeah, really good question actually. No, I think what I see now with younger marketers and a lot, there's a heavy reliance on their manager.
Yeah,
And that can work really well if you have a really good manager. Like it's if that's your mentor, that's good. But picking the right mentor is very important. So if you are new to any role, you're in marketing. This is great because every marketer with a podcast like this one is where you learn. And if it's not about marketing, it's about startup founders that all they care about is how do I sell my software.
yeah,
So there's so much good content around. Watch it like on the train, 10 minutes
mhm,
here, 10 minutes there. You start to see patterns with what is successful, what attitudes do these people have. So it's like be curious, consume all that content in whichever way you want, and then go
yeah,
from the right ones. There's a whole lot of slop out there as well. Don't like try to find the right stuff. Um, and then ask questions as well. I think anyone, if you wanna, and not just to the people around you, like internally, but if like don't be afraid to pick up the phone to a customer and be like, hey, why
mm,
why are you a customer? Like
mm,
why not? Most people will answer that if you do that. So you create that understanding of like why are you doing things, what is working somewhere else. And if you get that from your manager or your mentor, great. But if that's not working out, you need to find it somewhere else. And I think being in marketing, your main job or what a company expects from you is to create momentum and opportunity. And that doesn't come with a passive attitude. You need to be active. So you need to get out there. You need to do stuff
yeah,
and ask questions. So yeah, if you have that passive mindset, maybe a career in marketing or in like a growth stage company. I can't say for corporate, but if you're waiting for people to tell you what to do, that's your personality. May like marketing is different
yeah.
in my
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. Like, I think it can actually be it's overwhelming most of the time. I think in marketing, you feel like you're ahead of the curve, and then like ChatGPT
experience.
5 just drops or Nano Banana, where you can
Yeah,
just like replace people's face and it's like perfect AI,
yeah,
or and you're like, oh my goodness, I got to learn this now. This is a whole new discipline or a
yeah,
new tool to use. Or HubSpot are releasing product updates. I'm actually, yeah, like I used to be on top of it a bit more, but it's just daily now and it's just
yeah.
so hard to keep on top of it.
We were actually like they've been a bit in a spell the last 6 months where we're like, finally, like my me and my dimension manager, like he has like 10 years experience plus as well.
Yeah.
So we've been dealing with these little things for so long and it's all the same. Everybody's dealing with it. And they're starting to release these little tweaks. And we're like, oh, like one of the features we requested and they implemented really quickly was to be able to create a note on a contact from a workflow. It's
Right.
been a massive improvement for our role because
Okay.
like somebody downloads an ebook, sales comes in, sales doesn't read the ebook. So we put a summary of that in that note and it doesn't create a task because it comes later. So now they have a
Yep.
pinned note in their contact thing. And they now have a conversation that is smart because they know what the buyer has read.
Yeah.
So little things, and
Cool. Yeah. Well, that's it.
they've been on the roll with those little things. So,
Yeah. Little. Yeah. There's been a lot of little updates, but like some really cool stuff that you think,
yeah,
why didn't they do that years ago? But it's all, there's a runway for
priority.
everything. So just digging into that a little bit more, like, you mentioned being curious, active. What are some, we normally ask this at the end of the podcast, but we'll ask it now because it kind of relates to what we're talking about.
Hmm.
What podcasts, books, resources are your kind of go-tos for B2B marketing?
Yeah, true. So what I really like, there's like a YouTube channel. It's called Founder Stories, and it's like I found like this is where you get the harsh instant feedback. So this is are like these single person entrepreneurs.
Yes.
They want to build a SaaS out of nothing for themselves, no
Yep.
staff, no nothing. And they have to be creative to get distribution because they don't have any money. Uh, they'll never want to spend more money than what they have because all that money needs to go to fund their personal life. So what I found about them, I find it very inspiring in the way of how to get things off the ground. Where it's like, yes, I have a big marketing budget, but in essence, what they are doing, I can put money behind and learn what's working. So I found that one of the most honest lessons in like the truth of
Cool.
like what's working, what's resonating. So
Yeah.
and then there's like indie founders. So I'm watching a lot of that, yes, at the moment.
Cool. Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. Listening to founders, CEOs, I find that because a lot of them were the CMO or were from a marketing or sales background. So they just kind of cut to the chase about what's working and what doesn't
Well,
work.
yeah, I
I,
I
I
think
love that. I love
I think
just like
people that
what's working. Yeah.
I think like people that have their own money at risk is like they are not
Oh,
gonna make up some report where it's like, no, it
uh,
actually worked. No, so
yeah.
they're not.
Yeah. It's completely different to sort of more your corporate marketing where it's big budget, it's always on, and it's not so much a demand gen engine, it's just like a yeah,
Yeah.
corporate role.
Yeah, and it comes back to like we're looking at that now, right? Like we've been scaling in the ways of what's working, and then now it's like, well, that's working. I know what I'm gonna get. It may go up a little bit, it may go down, and this is like, well, I'm also in a job. I don't want to mess up. Like we've got something to lose here. But
Yeah.
is this then asking yourself, like, is this still the most efficient use of capital? And or should we try something else? So like we're now redoing our budget for 2026 and we're asking us that question, but I find a very difficult exercise to just retire everything we did before
Well,
or
that's
like make that bet.
that's it. And obviously it's working for you guys, so yeah, you're not trying to reinvent the wheel.
Hmm.
So, just in terms of, yeah, like I guess for like thinking about marketing, B2B marketing trends and the next sort of 6 to 12 months, like obviously we can't not talk about AI as well, but what are some trends or some things that you guys are seeing at Fshore in terms of like marketing trends or some things that you're thinking about? Is it, maybe moving some budget around? Is it tactical? Yeah, anything that you guys are sort of
Yeah.
seeing at the moment?
Yeah. Especially for tech. I think
Mm,
the way of, and I think I get a bit of that solo founder thing as well. There is now a generation of entrepreneurs that are like, the main goal is no longer get VC money, hire a big team, and grow at all costs.
yeah,
The people that start these
those are the
businesses,
days.
yeah, that like that's no longer like the dream, right? Like they still want to grow a big business, but they are now like the goal is to run it with one or two engineers and like AI doing most of the coding.
Agents and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of software out there that is going to be replicated at a much lower cost. and they went through all the learning, so they have something to learn for. So what that will do for software, it will commoditize the market even more, right? Like whether we're as a CRM, right? Like, I think like HubSpot is safe. They are a massive innovation and they keep
Yeah.
innovating. It's a big product to build. But if you're like a point solution
Yeah.
and you get replicated quickly, so you need to communicate value more. So really thinking about that. If everyone is the same, like what is your only lever? It's pricing, right? Like most of the time, and if you got
And a race to the bottom. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. If your service is commoditized, so really thinking about how do you stay ahead of that as a brand, and like what is the defensible mode in your product, and if you don't have that as a marketer, well, let's make something up that ties people emotionally to the product in another way. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm thinking about that a lot at the moment.
Yeah. And are you guys like in terms you mentioned earlier about you've got some really good data around attribution and that can support your brand
Hmm.
marketing in
Yeah,
terms of not just performance or lead generation stuff. So how do you guys like is it all really attribution based or do you kind of have some gut feeling around okay, look, we need to do some brand stuff,
yeah,
which sounds like it might be digital plus events plus lunch and learns as well. Like how do you put the dollars around,
yeah,
lead gen versus brand?
yeah. It's hard. So you need a bit mix of both, right? So
Yeah.
like I always have this story, like this comes from my background from uni. A lot of statistics is like correlation data and
Yep.
causality, right? So I'm always trying to explain like pregnant women love eating pickles, but eating pickles doesn't get you pregnant. That's a bit
Yes.
basically causality and correlation. I don't know if that's appropriate to say that one, but anyway, that attribution model is based on correlations. You also need to read into that, like, what does this mean, right?
Yep.
So I think there's still an art to it in essence. Like you can see, like that if once you start A/B testing ads, you'll get there. But I think you can also get stuck in this whole A/B testing. You just need to like have
Yeah.
a bit of like gut
Analysis
feeling.
paralysis, right? So
Exactly
easily.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think some of the best things is like when you just go to like some of your buyers, speak to them and be like, what keeps you up at night? And that gives you material for your ads. Like, and that is going to do better than what you got out of your A/B testing and what you came up yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's still important. And especially with like speaking about AI again, it's like the simple stuff you can outsource to AI, right? Like you can do more. But the creative stuff, the stuff that actually moves people, that is a lot harder to outsource to
Yeah.
AI. So that's where I think as a marketer, you get all this information and then you be like, okay, what is I think in at Y Combinator, they call it taste. Like what is a good product? What is good marketing? Like you
Mm.
still need to know, like have good taste about what is gonna work. So I think that's becoming more and more important.
Yeah. No, it's true. I think, image generation and that kind of stuff is, it's amazing. It's getting better every day, but
Yeah.
it still isn't probably whereas like more of a content creation, it's phenomenal,
Yeah.
like ChatGPT and other Claude and other tools are great for that. So still obviously human curated, that's the whole point. But yeah, it's phenomenal at that. But in terms of design, even I was looking at some Canva AI earlier today and I was just like, yeah, it's still not kind of quite
Well,
there.
yeah, I think so. Like you need to ask it what you want. So you need to know what you want, right?
Yeah. It's great to say, like, let's change this balloon from red to blue and things like that. It's really good or some
Yeah.
generic stuff. But in terms of like B2B creative design, it's, yeah, not quite there yet. I mean, maybe it'll get there. That might be the next SaaS product that's being built
I think so.
at the
Yeah, for
moment.
sure. No, like we actually use a lot of AI imagery, but there always needs to be a designer in the loop to put it all together.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned before about HubSpot. Love to understand, like, you mentioned some of those really minute kind of product updates, like the workflows, the notes, and things like that. What are some features in HubSpot that are your kind of like your most loved or most used in HubSpot? Love to love to hear about that as well.
good question. I think like the reporting has improved a lot. Like being able to cross object has helped a lot. Like for us now where we're at, we work with like we have a lot of integrations into a system and we use HubSpot to tie it all together. So we won't buy any other provider unless it integrates with HubSpot. Like
Cool. Yeah.
that's like a given. They need to have a real time sync, two-way sync. If not, we won't even entertain it anymore. So yeah, they've done a lot of work there as well. So
Hmm.
yeah, seeing how that works is yeah, and I think like their workflow features have improved a lot. Like I think like when we used it 10 years ago, it was it was tough. Um,
Yeah.
and so that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's huge,
yeah,
isn't
no,
it?
happy.
Awesome. Well, it's been a really good chat. I feel like there's just so much to dig into when it comes to what you're doing at Fshore, but you guys are doing such a good job, and just kind of showing that from a relatively unknown brand, what you can do when you've got a good product market fit, you can do great marketing. It is the dream, isn't it? As a marketer, when you've got a good product, it really helps. But
Yeah,
just to see what you guys have been doing in the marketing space, I think we've all been noticing and seeing what you guys have been doing. So yeah, it's great to have been having a chat today.
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So how can everyone get in touch with you or connect with you on LinkedIn? Any sort of what's the best way to catch you online?
Yeah, probably LinkedIn is the best way. Is my profile quite a unique name in Sydney? I think I'm the only one, so that's
It's always
good.
Niek Dekker, double K.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
So
So if you type that in,
yeah,
that's the best way.
cool. We'll link that. We'll link that in the description as well. Yeah, thanks so much, Nick. It's been really a privilege, pleasure having the chat with you today. And I think so many different bits and pieces to chat through, but great to chat with another marketer that understands some of the pain points around marketing. And you've actually lived the journey now twice. So yeah, really appreciate having you on the pod today.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Always a pleasure, and I'm sure we'll speak again.
Sounds like a plan. Cheers.